Now, when it comes to the amazing world of AI, we covered almost everything. We covered text using ChatGPT. We also covered images using GPT Vision, but we really haven't talked about audio, specifically voice. And so in today's video, I'm going to be showing you an amazing tool that could do a ton of stuff with voice that you would definitely want to use in your future apps. Plus, I'll also be showing you a fully working proof of concept app that I built using NoCode that leverages this amazing AI audio technology. And make sure you stick around until the end of the video because you definitely want to see the results of a little experiment that we're going to be doing today. But before all that, remember, all the resources and all the apps that I talk about in my videos are available to view and or clone from my Patreon page. And if you're not yet a member of our amazing Patreon community, then you can learn more about it using the link in the description below. Now, if you head over to 11labs.io, you can learn more about this amazing AI tool that is able to either generate voice, transform voice, or even clone voice based on somebody else's voice. This is truly a futuristic piece of technology. Okay, so this is what they say: generative voice AI, generate realistic speech with the most advanced AI voice model ever, create AI voices in minutes, and instantly convert text to speech online in any language. Okay, so here you can click on a language and convert text to speech. Okay, so you can select a language, type something, and it's able to generate an audio clip that's essentially somebody speaking the text that you wrote in a specific language. Okay, but this tool can do a lot more incredible things. Okay, so natural text to speech and AI voice generator. Let your content go beyond text without realistic AI voices. So here are all the applications that you can use for this technology. And obviously, voices and audio, there's so many use cases that pretty much any kind of app that you're looking to build, if it's going to be using voice, text to speech, anything related with audio, you will be able to put this amazing AI tool to use. Now, the best way that you can kind of, learn what this tool is capable of is by logging in. And so you can simply click on sign up and create your free account. Now, I already have an account that I've created, so I'm going to go ahead and log in. All right, so I went ahead and logged in, and on this first page, we are presented with something called speech synthesis. Okay, unleash the power of our cutting-edge technology to generate realistic, captivating speech in a wide range of languages. Okay, so there's a couple of things that you can do here that we're going to be talking about a little bit later as well. The first is text to speech. Okay, so this is where you are able to convert text into lifelike speech using a voice of your choice. Okay, so you're not limited to a specific voice. You can use one of the voices that they already have, one of their built-in voices, but you can also clone a voice as well that I'm going to talk about in just a second. So if you select text to speech, you can select a voice, right? So you have a ton of voices here. So Santa Claus if you want, Adam, this is an American accent, deep narration. Scroll down, you have Australian, you have English, Swedish, Irish. So you have all kinds of interesting voices that you can use, and in all kinds of different accents as well. And they also present the type of voice and also the use case that this voice would be most suitable for, right? So something like an audiobook, video games, news, narration, etc., etc. Okay. You also have things like voice settings, right? So here you can kind of modify and customize the voice that you're working with. Okay, and then the last thing here is a model that you can select. So you have a couple of models that you can use. There's the 11 Turbo, 11 English, 11 Multilingual, and the version 2 of this model. So we're going to be using this model here, and now I can type something. So for instance, I can type something like, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Okay, and here let's say I want to select Santa Claus. Okay, now I can click on generate, And so it's going to go ahead.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
And as you've probably already heard, it actually went ahead and generated a little audio clip of the text that I have here in the voice of Santa Claus, right? So here's the clip.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
All right, so I guess it kind of sounds like Santa Claus, okay? So if you know what Santa Claus sounds like, you can kind of, decide if it sounds like Santa Claus or not. But to my untrained ears, it kind of sounds like Santa Claus, okay? And you can download this here. Now, you can go ahead and try it in a different voice. So let's say Dorothy, okay? So it says we recommend switching to 11 multilingual version 1. So we're going to go ahead and switch. Okay, now we have Dorothy, which is a British accent, okay, children's story. So let's go ahead and generate it, and it's gonna play it. Okay, so you're gonna hear this, you're gonna hear the results immediately. So let's go ahead and generate this.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Okay, so a really, really clean voice, sounds really, really good, and sounds.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Okay, I don't really hear too much of that British accent there, but it's probably there somewhere. So if we had a longer text, maybe it would have been more obvious. Let's try another one. How about English Swedish? Okay, so Charlotte. Let's go ahead and generate it.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Okay, now I hear more of an accent there. Okay, so pretty cool, pretty cool. Now you can also do something called speech to speech, and this is where you're gonna upload an existing audio clip of another voice, and it's going to remix it into the settings that you have here. So a really, really cool piece of technology. But this is not the exciting part. The part that I'm most excited about is this thing here called Voice Lab. So if you click here, Voice Lab allows you to create a brand new voice from scratch. Okay, so this is your creative AI toolkit. Design entirely new synthetic voices from scratch, clone your own voice or a voice you have a permission and rights to. Okay, so you can click here and you have a couple of options. At least these are the options that I have. I have voice design, instant voice cloning, and a voice library. So if I click here, I can select an existing voice from their library of built-in, pre-built voices, essentially. So I can click here, and I can just add this voice, and now I have this voice in my library. So if I go to Voice Lab, I have this voice here. Another thing that you can do is you can generate your own voice from scratch. So you can do instant voice cloning, and so you can upload an audio clip of a specific voice, and then later on you can use this voice anytime you're doing text to speech or speech to speech. Now, instead of me showing you how it works on the website, I actually created a fully working proof of concept app using Flutterflow, which is my favorite no-code builder right now. So let's go ahead and jump into Flutterflow, and I want to show you an example of an app that you can create and customize for your own specific use cases. All right, so here we are inside of Flutterflow, which is my favorite no-code app builder. You can build all kinds of amazing apps using this builder, and I've been building all kinds of crazy apps, you name it, using this tool, and they're all on this channel. So before I show you how I actually build this app, let's go ahead and run this app so they can see it in action and see the amazing things that you can do with it. So I'm going to go ahead and start a new session here. All right, so here's the app here, and on this first page we have a simple text-to-speech demo. So here you can enter your text, and you also have a real-time list of voices. Now, these are going to be pre-built voices and also voices that you may want to clone. And so let's say I've used a voice from Emily before, and I really, really like that voice. And so I can type it in here, and I can select it, or I can simply select this voice from this select widget here. So I'm going to select Emily, and then I'm going to type it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Next, I want to click on process text, and as soon as I click on it, it's going to send a request and generate an audio file of this text using this voice here. So now you're seeing this little audio widget, and when you play this widget, you'll be able to hear the speech that was generated from this text. So let's go ahead and play it now.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
All right, so as you've just heard, we have generated this text using the voice of Emily. Now we can also switch it to, let's say, Thomas here, and we can regenerate it. So we're going to process this text again. Okay, and we are done. We can play this widget.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
All right, so we can keep trying this process in all kinds of different voices. But I think it's going to be a lot more fun to go ahead and generate a custom voice of our own. Now, in this next step here, you can see all the voices that we have in the system and a little bit of a description for each one. So we have Rachel here. This is an American calm female. We have Drew, American well-rounded male, Clyde, etc., etc. So all the voices that we have access to, including any of the custom voices, if any, are going to be on this list. And so you can kind of scroll around and see all kinds of voices that you have at your disposal. Now, let's say that you're not interested in using any of the voices here, but you want to create a voice of your own. Well, in that case, all you need to do is click this button, and you're going to be redirected to this other page here, and this is where you can create a brand new voice. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to give this new voice that we're going to be creating a name, and we're going to be referring to this voice using this name anytime that we're going to be using text-to-speech or speech-to-speech. So let's say I want to clone my own voice. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say James custom voice, and the next thing that I want to do is I want to upload a sample of my voice. Now, fortunately, I went ahead and I created an audio MP3 file that is a section from one of my tutorial videos. And so let me go ahead and play this clip for you so that you can get an idea of what this voice is about. And we can say we can create a loop that loops after each of the elements and updates the values with the fresh. All right. So that was an excerpt from one of my tutorial videos on this channel, actually. And this audio sample is just a minute long, but this is going to be enough for successfully cloning my voice. And so the next thing that we want to do is we want to upload this file. So we're going to click here and we're going to select this audio.mp3. Okay, it says success. That means the file was uploaded. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to click this button, and that's going to send a request to 11 Labs to clone this voice. We're going to click here. Okay. And now we get a response, and what we're getting is a voice ID of the new voice that we have cloned. And so you can click OK. And now we are redirected to the original page. And guess what? You can select it, and now you can select a new voice. So as you can see, we have James custom voice that wasn't there before. So you can also search for it, and you can, in fact, you can just type custom voice, and now you can type a piece of text and generate speech using this newly cloned voice, which is my own voice. So let me go ahead and type in a little bit of text that we want to generate this new audio of in my voice, and then you can let me know if it actually sounds like my voice or not. I'd be curious to know what you guys think. So let me go ahead and type some stuff. All right, so this is the text that we have, and I'm going to click on process text, and we're going to generate a speech sample using my newly cloned voice of my own voice. Okay, let's go ahead and see how it sounds. All right, saved recording to Google storage. All right, so we have generated a recording. And as you can see, it's 6 seconds long. And when I hit play, you'll be able to hear this new recording that we created using this custom voice. Okay, so I'm going to click on play, listen to it, and let me know in the comments below if it sounds like myself or not. And I'll also let you know what I think.
It was the worst of times. It was the best of times.
Life was reaching its pinnacle, but I wasn't yet ready to give up. It was the worst of times. It was the best of times. Life was reaching its pinnacle, but I wasn't yet ready to give up.
All right, so I'm not exactly sure it sounds like me. I mean, it sounds good, but I'm not sure it sounds like me. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think, but let's play that again.
It was the worst of times. It was the best of times. Life was reaching its pinnacle, but I wasn't yet ready to give up.
It sounds good, but I don't know if it sounds like me or not, okay? Let's try another voice. How about this jagged, smooth, deep, and mysterious, just to have a fair comparison, okay? So we're gonna reprocess this and see how it sounds like. Okay, so save the recording. 7 seconds. Let's play it.
It was the worst of times. It was the best of times. Life was reaching its pinnacle, but I wasn't yet ready to give up.
Okay, so this sounds like a nice voice, and obviously it sounds like a professional narration voice, whereas that previous recording that we generated using that clone voice did not sound as dramatic, but I'm also not 100% certain that it sounded like me. But still, it was a good attempt, and the voice sounded pretty decent actually. All right, so now that you've seen this proof of concept demo where we can create text to speech using built-in voices, we can look at existing voices, and we can also clone a voice from a recording, let's jump into FlutterFlow so that you can see how I build this app in case you want to build a similar app as well. All right, so here we are inside of FlutterFlow, and the first thing that I want to show you are my API calls, because we're going to be making API calls to get all of these things done. So this is very, very important. So if you click here, you can see my API calls, and more specifically, I'm using get speech, I'm using clone voice, and I'm using get voices, right? The 3 API calls for the 3 screens of the app that I built. Now, if you are going to be building apps that are going to be interacting with 11 labs, then you should definitely familiarize yourself with their API. And you can easily do that by simply Googling 11 Labs API reference. And so when you do that, you're going to be on a page that looks something like this. And actually, their APIs are not complex at all, right? So they have text to speech, which is the one that I'm using here. They have a history API. They have samples. They have user. They have voices, so I'm using get voices and I'm using add voice. Then they have something called projects, and I'm not even touching this right here. I think this is for professionals that are looking to do a lot of work, so I'm not even messing with this. Then they also have models, where you can get a list of models that you have access to. And last but not least, they have something called audio native. Okay, now let's go ahead and jump back into FlutterFlow so that I can show you what's happening. Okay, so the first thing that I want to show you is this get speech API call, and this is the functionality that's doing the text to speech conversion, right? So this is where you're typing the text, you're choosing the voice, and you're getting back an audio recording of that text in that specific voice. And here I'm actually using a tool called N8N, which is a great tool if you're doing any kind of automations, any kind of complex things. And I actually have a full comprehensive tutorial that you're going to see right there. So definitely check it out if you want to learn more about this tool. And so now we are looking at a workflow that I built for this API. Now, if you're a member of our amazing Patreon community, I'm also going to provide you a full export of this workflow, right? So I can simply click on download, and you'll be able to import this workflow in your N8N installation. Okay, so you're going to get access to this exact workflow. But still, this is a very, very simple workflow. So we have a webhook here that listens for requests. And this is the part where I am doing text to speech, right? So I'm doing this text to speech request here, and this should be speech. So here I'm connecting to 11 Labs, and I'm passing the voice ID for the voice that we want to create this speech in, right? That text to speech in. And then if you scroll down, I'm also passing in the body, and this text right here is the actual text that we sent to the previous node. And this is the text that we want to convert into speech here. Now, the trick with this API is that when we send everything, this API responds with a binary file. Okay, so it doesn't give us a URL of a file hosted somewhere. It actually gives us back the actual file. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to take this file and we need to save it somewhere. And ideally, you want to save it somewhere and get back a URL of that file that you can display in your Flutterflow app, right? You can save it as a source for that widget that you're going to see in just a little bit. And for that, I'm using this node that saves a raw file to Google Storage. And this is really nice with N8N is that you can pass this data right here, right? So we're passing a binary property, which is what we get back from 11 Labs. And here we can simply save it as an audio MP3. And once we've saved it into Google Storage, we can get back a URL of that file's location. That's going to be a lot more useful to us than the binary file that we are getting back from this API. And this is exactly why I chose to kind of implement this specific workflow, this specific API call using the tools such as N8N, okay? Because we're getting this binary and we need to do something with it, right? And ideally, like I said, you want to save it somewhere, forget about it, and just get back a URL that you can locate that file with. And this is exactly what's happening here. And so back here in Flutterflow, I am simply referencing this URL of this workflow, right? So if you come over here, click on production, you can copy this thing here and you can paste it. And so for the body, I'm passing the text, which is the text that the user typed in the UI. And I'm also passing the voice ID, which is what the user picked. And so all of this is being passed to our workflow in N8N. And we get back the actual URL of that file that was generated. So all the heavy lifting is done by the workflow. And that's exactly how I like it. I just want to get the file URL back so that I can use it in the UI. Now, this next API call is actually very, very simple. It simply gets all the voices that I have access to. And if you head over here and you can scroll down to voices section, you can simply come over here and that's all you need to do. And this is the API call that I'm using. And this API call is very, very simple. The only thing that you need to pass is your API key, and you can get it from your profile page, from your account profile page. And I'm not passing anything else, right? Everything else is default. And as a result, we get a list of voices here, right? So I can test this API, and here I get a list of voices. And having this list of voices is obviously very, very useful because I can let the user know what kind of voices we have access to if they want to create a new voice or simply look at the list of voices that we have. Now, last but not least, I'm also using this clone voice API. And this is the API here, right? This is where you can add a voice using an existing recording, right? So if you have a voice that you want to clone, maybe it's your own voice, you can just record a quick audio file, so something like an MP3 file, and you can use this in this API call. And so for this API, I'm passing in my API key. I also have the body here. We're passing in the name that we want to give to this new voice that we're cloning. And here is going to be the file that the user uploads from the UI. Okay. And for the variables, we have name and file here as well. And so these are the three API calls that I'm using. And so now we can head back to the UI and I can show you exactly what's happening. So the first screen that I want to show you is the home page, right? So we have this input text and we also have this audio widget. Now, this is actually a standard stock audio widget that's available with Flutterflow. This is not a third-party widget or anything. And so I'm displaying it inside of a row. And this row is being displayed conditionally. And so if we get a response from the API, when we press this button, we are going to be displaying it. But on the other hand, if the user just loads this app, that there's really no need to display it because there's no audio file to play. The next thing that we have is this select widget, this drop-down menu widget. And here I am simply loading all the voices. So this widget here has a backend, right? Has a source of data. And I'm simply using this get voices API call to pull all the voices and simply set it right here. So I'm setting the values and I'm setting the labels, right? The values are the IDs because we need to pass an ID, whereas the labels are the names. Okay, so it's going to display the names. And when the user selects a particular voice, we're not going to be passing the name. We're going to be passing the ID. Now, the bulk of things are happening when the user clicks on the button, right? So if you select this button, click here, you can see that we're executing this get speech API call, We're passing the text and the voice ID, and this is from the user input. And then if it has been successful, we set this got response Boolean. And if that got response is set to true, which is the case here, we're going to be displaying that audio player. Next, we're updating page state for the second time. And this time we are setting this file URL that we get back from the API call. We get back a file URL where the file is stored, this newly created file. And here I'm showing a quick snack bar that says saved recording to Google storage. So the user knows that everything is fine, so that we were able to successfully do text to speech. We were able to upload this new audio and get back a URL. Now, once we are able to get back the URL of that audio file, we are setting it as the source for this widget here. So if you scroll down, this widget actually has an audio file source that's a page parameter. And so that way, when we get the URL of the newly created audio and we set it here, because this is page state, is going to rebuild the entire page. And so this widget will be rebuilt with this URL, and that gives it that reactive behavior that, you know, we all love and our users love as well. And the reason this happens is if you scroll down right here, right, we are saying rebuild current page. This is very, very important. We want to rebuild the current page here because we're setting this URL to our page state. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So the user type something here, they select the voice, they press a button, this widget appears, and they can play it immediately, right? Because this widget is loaded with that new URL of that newly generated audio file. So this is really, really awesome. The next screen that I want to show you is this voices list, right? So what happens here is we display a list of voices. So a very, very simple list view. In fact, I'm using one of the templates just to kind of speed things up. And the first thing that we're doing is we're executing an API call right here. So if you scroll up, you can see we're using this get voices API. And then on the list view, we are accessing the actual voices array, right? This is that voices array that I saved as JSON path when I was configuring and testing that API call. And once I have that, the next thing that I can do is I can display the various fields. So here I'm displaying the name. As you can see, this is the name. And for the subtitle, I'm displaying some extra information. So I'm displaying things like the accent, the description, as well as the gender of that specific voice so that the users can see, you know, what this voice is all about, right? So they can pick the right voice for their application. So a very, very simple screen simply lists the voices that we have access to, whether these are pre-built voices or custom generated voices, just a simple list. But the real magic here is that when the user clicks on this button, we are going to redirect them to clone voice, right? And this is that last page here. And on this page, you can upload a sample of an audio that contains the voice that you want to clone here. And once you upload it, we have this button here. And on this button, when the user clicks on it, we're going to be executing this clone voice API. So we're going to be specifying the name that the user assigned to this brand new voice. Maybe it's, James custom voice or new custom voice or whatever. And we're also going to be sending this file that the user just uploaded, right? So when the user clicks on this, they're presented with a file picker dialog box, and they choose the file, they upload it, and that file is now in the system, right? So Flutterflow knows about that file. So if you click here, you can actually send this file anywhere. And in this case, we're sending this file that the user has uploaded directly to the API. Now, once that API returns successfully, we are simply going to be displaying this voice ID. And this is kind of like a debug message, but it's useful when you're developing an app, because if you've gotten a valid voice ID back, that means that everything is fine and we were able to clone a voice. And last but not least, we're essentially navigating them back to the home page. And on this home page, they can pick a newly generated voice, because when they come back here, this list is dynamic. And anytime they land on this page, this list will actually make an API call and get all the voices. So when they come back to this page after they have generated a brand new voice, so they cloned a voice, they're gonna see this voice in this select menu here. So They can, create a, text to speech using existing voices. And then they can head over to clone voice, clone a new voice, come back, and then use that newly cloned voice to do another text to speech, which is exactly what we did in the demos. And obviously you can take this app and use it as is, or you can actually take this app and use it as a base for a more complex app. So maybe you're building a very, very complex app that has some of the functionality where the user needs to do something related to text to speech, or they need to clone an existing voice, whether it's their voice or somebody else's voice. The possibilities are truly endless. There are tons of things that you can do, and 11 Labs is releasing new and new features, new and new functionality, as well as providing the corresponding APIs, which means that you can expand this app to do more amazing things as time goes on. And if you want to do that, then you definitely need to join our amazing Patreon community, because when you join our amazing Patreon community, you're going to get access to this exact app, which means that you'll be able to view it, you'll be able to clone it. I'll also give you the source for my N8N workflow, and that means if you simply self-host N8N, it's very, very easy to self-host it. You can watch it in this video, and you can simply import my provided workflow, and that means you can start making calls to this workflow from your Flutterflow app. And of course, that's not all. When you join our amazing Patreon community, you're going to get access to all the apps that I've created, I've demonstrated, and I've published on this channel. And I believe there's more than 150 apps as of the time of making this video. So regardless what kind of app that you're looking to build, chances are I've done a similar app before. So why reinvent the wheel when you can simply get a head start and clone an app that I've already created here in Flutterflow? Plus, you're going to get access to extra content. So things like Q&As, behind the scenes content, as well as our Patreon supported masterclass series where I do deep dives on specific topics that the community is interested in. And in fact, just a couple of days ago, I did a deep dive on an amazing tool called Build Ship. I talked about some of the things that I did not talk about on this channel, because a lot of people inside of our community are very much interested in using this tool in their projects. So I covered a lot of interesting aspects of this tool, as well as answered some of the questions that the community members had. But above and beyond, when you join our amazing Patreon community, you're going to be supporting this channel and supporting my work. And of course, that is greatly, greatly appreciated. So if you feel that any of this that I've just covered might provide you with some level of value, then you definitely owe it to yourself to check out our amazing Patreon community and consider becoming a member. Trust me, if you're serious about no-code, if you're looking to step up your no-code game, then you will never ever regret joining our amazing Patreon community. And you can learn more about our Patreon community using the link just below the video.